O labing makagagahom nga amay namon sa langit, mahinuklugon nga laon nga tagtugas ang langit, hangin, kalayo, tubig kag duta. Tanda ining imong timawa, kabay ining pag-ampo, magadulot sa amon sang kabuhi nga himaya. Salamat sa mga bugay nga imo ginpaambit sa amon. Salamat sa kabuhi nga ginadulot mo sa amon nga himpit. Salamat sa maayo nga panahon kag ilabi na gid sang imo katutom sa amon. Bendisyone ang imo katawhan. Bendisyone ang ila mga palangabuhian. Bendisyone ang mga panggas sa amon mga talamnan. Bendisyone ang ilang nga paglugayawan sa iban nga kapungsuran. Kabay makalabot sila nga walay sablag sa ila pagapadulungan. Kag ila binagid, bendisyone ining isla sang Negros nga amon natawhan. Kinahalad namon ang ining pag-ampo para sa imo kadayawan.
Bayang magiliw kay sa silanganan, alam ng puso sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang imirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisihil. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong bughaw, may hilag ang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kisap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagdinigdig. Ang bituin at araw niyang kailan pa may magdidilim. Lupa ng araw na walhagit pansinta, buhay ay langit sa piling mo. Ang hinigaya na pag may mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo. Sa kita kapamilya, pag-uligay, pag-inay, pag-ibong, malapat mag-ari sa ating na probinsya. Nagotod na Negros kauswagan ng sikatao. Matutuot na Negros sa ayon, isa katao na mabigalang taon. Sa punat ang buong dati sakripisyo, pagbulikan, paghigain, paghigog mo, dapat maghari. Para sa kauswagan ng sikatao.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Red of NOLITC, and we are so happy that you decided to join this webinar on NOLITC Esports, Creating a Healthy Team Culture. This event is presented to you by the province of Negros Occidental through the Office of the Governor and Negros Occidental Language and Information Technology Center, or NOLITC, in partnership with AcadArena. We are so delighted to have your presence with us this afternoon. Let us know in the comment section where you're joining us from. Make a shout out of your school. Let us know which school you are representing. We will be acknowledging you in the course of this webinar. We all know that a healthy team culture inspires a better leadership, improvements in participation, and increases in performance. So let us make this learning session fun, collaborative, and insightful for everyone. NOLITC continues to introduce innovative programs through the strong support of our provincial government. We are recognized nationally as Outstanding Tech Fred Center by the Department of Information and Communications Technology. We are also 2-star awardee in our Contact Center Services NC2 program, Visual Graphic Design NC3, and 1-star award in our 2D Animation NC3 program. And in 2020, PhilSecNet awarded the center the Pandemic Resilience Award for its support for teachers and students category. Now, let me remind you all to fill out the online attendance right now. The link to our online attendance is pinned in the comments section, or you may scan the QR code that is flashed in your screens right now. We will not be able to catch up with all of your comments, so if you have any questions, please post them in the comment section. All right, to participate again in the open forum, kindly post your questions or your feedbacks through the comment section. Again, the links will be shared in the comment section. The moderator will bring them up towards the end of the presentation. If you have not seen our previous posts yet, you can always check out our social media accounts. Please follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And to kickstart today's webinar, let us hear a message from the Vocational School Administrator of NOLITC and NOLITC Tech Red Center Manager. Let's give a generous clap to Dr. Maria Cristina Arbisido.
Thank you, Ms. Red. I would like to warmly welcome all participants to our second webinar series for Esports Education hosted by NOLITC and AcadArena Technologies. Last week, you learned about the ways on how to create a campus gaming community with our expert speaker, Kenneth Alog. I would like to highlight some key points discussed in his webinar, such as steps on how to start a gaming club, different stories of student leaders, sponsorship activations, leadership seminars, recruitment weeks, and the games or the tournaments. Also, he highlighted what you will learn from being part of a gaming club. Well, frankly, there are a lot of soft and hard skills learned and applied. To mention a few, soft skills learned includes curiosity, growth mindset, problem solving, and work ethic. Soft skills applied are conflict resolution, work under pressure, and strategic thinking. And of course, we cannot forget the hard skills learned and applied, such as organizing events, design and production, player development, and marketing. Again, I would like to emphasize that the value of our esports program in collaboration with AcadArena is not just play or games. Our goal is to promote digital literacy, digital citizenship, and innovation to all public and private schools in the province. This afternoon, learn from another expert speaker on how to create a healthy team culture in your campus and how to build a stronger esports team. Enjoy and have fun learning. Again, welcome to this webinar. NOLITC inspires, NOLITC cares. Avance, Negrense.
Thank you, Dr. Tina. I know that you're all excited to start learning. So, but before that, do not forget to comment your names and the name of your school in the comment section. We will acknowledge your school later or towards the end of this webinar. And to introduce our resource speaker for this afternoon, let us welcome to our virtual space the NOLITC Esports Lead and Training Coordinator of NOLITC. Please give a big round of applause to Mr. John Parson Pernia.
Thank you, Ms. Red, and good afternoon, everyone. Let me introduce to you our speaker for today. He works to elevate self-awareness and improve adaptive thinking. Let's welcome Mikey Furser Alberto, the Mind Meta Life Coach and Esports Coach.
Yes, hello. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Sir
Hi.
John, and thank you rin for inviting me here to share my experience. No, NOLITC and AcadArena, thank you so much. In particular, si Miss Red, si Miss Tina, heard from you just a while ago, and si Miss Ellie dyan sa background, thank you so much, and everyone in the audience as well. Thank you for having me.
Uh, I know, sir, that the audience is really interested with our topic for today, that is creating a healthy theme culture. And, sir, you may have the virtual floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sir Jan. So, let's start creating a healthy team culture. Um, I in my presentation or in my talk right now, I'm gonna be using this. So this is a tool that I've been using nung nagko-coach ako or habang nagko-coach ako ng esports. So just so I can help better direct the flow, no. So but to give a brief introduction, a bit more about myself, like sino ba ako, like why was I even invited to talk? So I have a very strong background in esports competition. But that really started when I was competing myself as a player nung college ako. So I played League of Legends before. I represented UP Diliman. Um, hindi pa ganun ka-organized yung clubs across the Philippines when it comes to esports. Usually, teams lang talaga. Walang support staff, walang people in charge of marketing, in charge of operations, the different positions ng officers, wala pang ganun. So, really, esports competition pa, and that's the era I was part of, no? So, I was blessed to be able to represent the Philippines alongside my friends back then who are my close friends now, and that's one good thing about esports talaga. It brings people together. We competed abroad, napalipad kami sa South Korea and Malaysia, and that really served as core experiences, no? And that further funneled my passion, strengthened my passion for esports and psychology as well, because in competing, um it has a lot to do with interactions between and among peers. So psychology is very important there. Being mindful, in particular, in relating with each other, and being mindful as well of everything that goes on in the game. So right now I'm taking my masters in Ateneo, counseling psychology. Hopefully I can get my license in a couple of years, no, and really put a stamp on yung professional practice ko as a psychologist. But now, yun, I'm here to talk about creating a healthy team culture. The last session of Knowledge C by my good friend Ken Alog talked about campus communities, how to get started there. Um, this will focus a bit more on the characteristics, no? Kung ano yung magagandang pwedeng ma-embody, yung pwedeng madala ng isang healthy team culture. So, yeah. But to start, I want to share this quote lang. There can be no team without its members. And I'm sharing this quote because before a culture even happens, syempre, there needs to be the people that build it. What is culture without its members, its people, its proliferators, yung mga students, really. And all of the people that they work with, yung admin, even yung mga competitors nila in the tournament, kasama yan lahat sa isang culture that we can really strive to build na nakakatulong not only for ourselves but for everyone, really. And that really helps to combat the stigma about online gaming and esports being something na parang a waste of time, stuff like that. But really, I really want to stress the point na um it starts with the self. Culture always does, especially those who are in a position of authority, those who are in a position na may initiative. Yung unang nagpapakita ng initiative, really. Those who start to build a culture, it's very important they walk the talk, they teach by example, they act, they speak by example. So the behavior can be modeled, no? Kung nakikita ng iba na si founder, si president, for example, um, they embody a certain trait or characteristic, then syempre it'll be easier and much more motivating for them to carry the same traits or characteristics and how they perform in their positions in the org, for example, or as competitors in the scene. So um focusing on the individual, no, I'd like to paint a picture of two people first na commonly makikita natin as part of a team, an esports team in collegiate in particular, no. Some may identify with being the solo grinder, sorry. So this person, they play for rank, self improvement or personal leisure. I myself categorize myself in under this like category. Sorry for the redundancy. And yung mga tipong ganito is gusto talagang gumaling at the game. They really love winning. Self-improvement is very important. Yung learning from mistakes, from getting better at the game, reaching the top 1% in the game. Para syempre when they represent their own school, uh, kaya talaga nilang ma-represent strongly. Kumbaga malakas sila, quote unquote, when it comes to the competition. And the common themes that these people embody, these students embody, are talent, drive, and the opposite side of the coin, which is loss sensitivity, because wins are very important to them. Gusto nilang mag-improve. Pag natatalo, merong impact 'yon sa sarili nila. Um, and and really part of the whole healthy culture comes into play here kasi dealing with failure, dealing with loss, that's a concept that's very important to tackle, especially in esports competition. Now na may magandang structure na to support that, thanks to AcadArena, for example, no, dealing with loss and failure, people go about that in very different ways, but there is always that healthy way, which is to treat loss and failure or shortcoming as a step towards growth, instead of an experience or an event that you like keep beating yourself up on. Or if for some, it might also be the case na your teammates might even throw out a lot of blame sa'yo. And how will you, as a person, as a student who tried your best in competition, how will you handle that sort of external pressure? Diba? And that's where the healthy culture comes into play. So the other side naman of the individual, I'm speaking in broad categories again, is the taraji sort of person. No? And this person plays to socialize and have fun with friends, and plays the game casually, no. Good trip. Good trip lang. And they really wanna play with people. Invite natin si ano, ilan tayo? So, um, yung medyo makulit after school hours, mag-aaya parati mag-ML, for example, just to unwind. And it doesn't have to be all the time. Pero when they do play ML, for example, it's really important for them na may kasama, may kalaro, 5 stack, duo, whatever. Not so much hindi gano'n kahalaga sa kanila that they play alone or by themselves to improve their own gameplay. And yun, common themes ng mga students na to or persons na to is extroversion and, as I said, casual play. So just to compare again the two, the first person, that person really at some point in time, at least may isip niya, pwede ba ako mag-pro? Yeah, that sort of ideation, that sort of thought comes into mind. And the second category naman is a person who just finds genuine enjoyment with playing with friends. So that's the context, no? Very simple context. Of course, a lot of different factors that come into um, what defines a healthy esports culture. But in terms of yung nasabi nating demographic, these are the two big umbrellas in the context of an esports team. No, and of course there are lots of in betweens. This is just a spectrum. Really, you can be more towards this side or the other side or in between or even a different sort of category really. But just to paint a picture, usually ito nga yung mga um this is the left and right side of the players who are part of an esports team in collegiate. So that being said, very colorful itong next slide ko. This is a visual representation of how I imagine an ideal esports team ecosystem to be, yung structure. I will explain one by one kung ano yung mga colors na to, one by one. So kung medyo overwhelming to, don't worry about that kasi next slide, mababawasan ng kulay to, 100%, and you'll only see one color. So, keep in mind that this is the ideal team structure or team ecosystem for a professional esports team. So, let's start at the very top, no? Kung ano yung pinaka-okay talaga, what do we strive to reach in terms of structure. And we talk about structure first, because we also need to provide that standard in terms of the context for which yung culture is based on, no? So it's very important to understand na when we talk about building a healthy culture when it comes to an esports team, we what sort of culture are we for whom are we building that culture, no? So the context is this, etong structure na to, etong esports team na to, and it's very wide. Most people think na esports team 5 players lang yan, maybe may coach 6 people, but all of these dots, these circles rather, they represent, or they could potentially represent, in an ideal context, one person. So ang dami niyan if I were to count. This is maybe like definitely more than 20, no? And you can see naman what the colors represent on the right, and we'll go over each one. So first, let's talk about yung main roster. Ito yung mga yellow. So 5 people usually in an esports team to, mga sikat na esports natin include MLBB number 1 for sure, Philippines tayo. Second, third, fourth onwards might be Valorant, Dota, League of Legends, COD M. And most of these esports titles require 5 people to be part of one team versus another team comprised of 5 players. So it's a 5 versus 5. Kaya may 5 connecting circles dito. That's what it represents, no? Tapos itong dalawa naman, these represent the potential substitutes. Ideally, there would be 2 substitutes. Some professional teams have more subs. Some professional teams have 1. Some professional teams have none. But ideally, maganda na meron talagang reserve. So I placed 2 circles here. And so in explaining kung ano ba yung mga roles that these players take on, I refer to dito sa right side, no? Please refer to the right side of this slide. So there are 3 categories that we can use to assign roles. So first is yung in-game role, which is yung role ng player in the game. Depende sa game naman to. They can be the carry, yung support, in ML, XP laner, in Valorant for example, yung anchor, In shooting games, mostly may anchor tsaka may entry. In MOBAs, usually may carry talaga, may support. Diba? So, yung role talaga nila in game in terms of function, yung dinadala nilang value sa game, yung role na kine-carry out nila. In terms of yung characteristics, yung strengths nila sa paglalaro talaga. Very specific to the game, no? So that's the in-game role. So second naman is yung communicational role, which is who is in charge of saying what in the game. So this is, for example, yung shot caller, yung nagko-call ng sinasabi nating macro or yung mga tactical moves as a team na ginagawa sa loob ng game or strategic moves. This is called the shot caller. Meron rin tayong sinasabing drafter for MOBA games like ML or League of Legends or Dota. Ito yung sa pag-select ng mga heroes or champions, sila yung mastermind sa pag-iisip kung ano yung pipiliin natin first, how about second and third, how about fourth and fifth, ano yung ibaban natin sa kalaban na team. So, sila yung brain behind that, but that does not mean na siya lang naman yung nag-iisip. Siya lang yung parang nagli-lead. And there are other different communicational roles depending on the game naman. And depending rin on the team makeup. Kasi not all teams are the same because what comprise the teams are individuals, are persons, and not all individuals are the same too. So, iba-iba parate ang composition ng team, and that's where interpersonal skills come in, and that's where healthy culture comes in as well. Diba? So dito pa lang sa main roster kita na natin kaagad yung effect ng isang healthy culture, and I'll be going over the major details of that after painting a picture of the structure, no. But yun, just as early as now, I'd like to point that out. So may in-game role, communicational role, may authority role as well. Authority role naman, this is yung parang, well, yung authority nila outside of the game. So, in a team, may captain. Sila yung representative most of the time. Sometimes yung captain, sila rin yung acting manager. Sila yung nagre-register for the team. Minsan, it's not the captain who does that. Minsan, nagde-delegate sila. Uy, pare, bro, ikaw na lang. Sige na, medyo busy ako eh. May exam ako. Ikaw na lang mag-reg for us, for example. Pwedeng ganun. And then there are the substitutes as well in terms of authority. Now, because they're subs, their exposure to training, their exposure to tournaments is a bit less. And this can be due to a whole bunch of reasons. Maybe iba yung priorities nila. Maybe in terms of skill, they're not as good as the other players. And in terms of culture ng isang esports club, mahalaga para sa club, for example, na yung magre-represent sa kanila yung pinakamagaling sa game. That's possible. For some clubs, maybe it's not that. Maybe that's not super important for them. Maybe those who are more skilled in terms of putting a lot of structure and discipline in training, baka yun yung criteria nila. So it's different per club, it's different per team, sorry. And then merong team B. Team B is just basically a second team. Syempre kung may main roster or may team A tayo, it's possible na may second team. And we can see this in countless clubs across the Philippines na before, usually one team lang nung panahon ko, no? Pero now na there's a lot of structure put into place sa clubs, nakikita na natin yung pag-bubble up ng mga team B. And for iba-iba yung mga reason ng clubs for this. Some for succession. Pag nag-graduate na tong player na to, sino papalit sa kanya? Maybe this person, and it can only be this person kasi yung role ng player na to is, let's call it role A, halimbawa carry. Sa team B, sino yung nagke-carry position? Itong person na to. So ito yung papalit. Something like that. That's possible succession. Maybe in terms of training, gusto ni Team A may consistent scrim partner. A scrim means basically a training session or a practice session. Usually this is a way to simulate a tournament match talaga. So that's what a scrim is. Parang training session, pwedeng best of 1 yan, best of 3, best of 5. It really depends on kung ano yung purpose nung training na to, and again, this depends on the team. So it can be for succession, pwede ring parallel performance. Paano kung may halimbawa sa April random date, may tournament on April 25, and then there's another tournament So two tournaments, A and B. Send this team for tournament A, send this team for tournament B, for example. It's possible na ganun. So, magkaka-experience rin in terms of competitive tournament experience yung Team B. So, if there's that sort of demand in the ecosystem, then maybe forming a Team B would be good. But again, in the context of collegiate, not all student populations can cater to yung may Team B. Some schools, for example, yung students nila in relation to an esport, let's say lang, Dota 2. Not a lot of their students are interested in Dota 2. Therefore, Team A lang yung mabubuo. So, like real considerations like that too, like the number of students who are actually interested in the game, kind of serve as soft limits, no, to the idea of forming a Team B. So that's the short rundown of yung main roster and yung Team B in terms of structure in the ecosystem. Secondly is etong coaches and managers. So coaches etong mga blue, managers etong mga pink. In terms of position, I just place them above the players para lang magkalapit sila, no. Pero you all might think bakit seven yung coaches, no? Yung managers mas intuitive, one for team A, potentially another for team B, no. But etong coaches part, bakit ang dami and bakit may blue? So basically, this is like the core support staff rather. Realistically, some teams walang coach in collegiate especially kasi there's less interest in being a coach for a team in collegiate um, compared to being a player because students wanna play. Even in junior high school or senior high school, gusto maglaro, gusto magsabak ng mga tao. But really, iba yung value na nabibigay ng pagiging player versus ng pagiging isang coach or manager, no. The skill sets that get developed are totally different, and it really depends on what you want to pursue, like later on ano yung mga gusto mong ma-develop na skill set. The thing is, in collegiate, kung same kayo ng edad, same age kayo, let's say lahat kayo 18 years old, tapos may coach kayo 18 years old rin. Usually there's also this idea na bakit namin pakikinggan yung coach, mag-isa lang siya, 18 years old, same age as us, 5 tayo. Like there's this thing at the back of the player's mind na we know how to play the game. I'm sure our coach knows how to play the game also, but why do we need to listen to them, right? So may mga ganong nuances rin that happen that kind of hinder the yung playing out the role that you're supposed to play in this environment really well, no. So things at the back of your mind such as that. So going back to the reason why seven tong coach positions is because ideally, again, in the professional scene, yes, merong head coach, merong assistant coach, for example, kaya magkatabi sila. Pero there are different sort of coaches rin naman. Hindi lang yan coach. Some coaches specialize in strategic coaching, which is yung strategy talaga ng game. Pwedeng drafting yan, pwedeng map veto, pwedeng pag-scout yan, pwedeng pag VOD review. A VOD review is reviewing the replay of the game that you played so you can see kung saan kayo nagkakamali, paano kayo mag-i-improve. So may strategic coaching, may position coaching rin. So this coach who has a lot of experience in the carry position or yung mga technicalities dyan, might be focused on this player kasi ito yung carry ng team, for example. So one-to-one coaching is also possible. One person per player. And this happens in South Korea. This happens in Europe. This happens in US na mas developed na yung esports structure, mas madaming funding na pwede mangyari. So, position coaching is definitely real, although I wouldn't say that accessible yet here in the Philippines since pausbong pa lang si esports. But yeah, it's a very real thing, a very real strength in terms of coaching too. Data analysts rin naman, or some people would say analysts, kind of the same thing. Pero this is a coaching style that focuses on numbers naman. So for example, sa isang Google sheet, sa isang Excel sheet, for example, Yung game kasi na nilalaro natin may stats yan na pinapakita sa atin after the game. So yung post-game na sinasabi natin. After the game, 'di ba, may parang screen na lalabas, ito yung damage, ito yung gold, may graphs. So the data analyst works on that, plots them on a Google Sheet, tapos from the numbers draws up insights that can help the team improve. May ganong sort of coach. Then meron ring mental coaching, which is um uh a bit more rare in collegiate because yung training that needs to be done for someone to add value in terms of yung mentality ng players, it's not super accessible at this stage in education, for example. And a lot of experience is needed for a coach to develop their skills in terms of coaching the mental of their players, no. So ito yung focus, ito yung pagiging mentally resilient, ito yung prioritization, ito yung pag in-game, yung hindi pag-tilt, but instead focusing on the next play, those sorts that sort of thing. That's what mental coaching touches on. Meron na ring personal coaching, which is a more holistic or a more person-centered approach to coaching. So before, I always throughout this quote, before we are players, we are people. So syempre, tayo, we have different roles that we play as persons, students tayo, teachers, esports athletes, competitors, we're members of different clubs, so we have different roles. Personal coaching focuses on the person because um, working on the person can have positive spillovers to the roles that they play. So yan yung side of coaching na mas ano talaga, mas in touch sa soft side ng tao. Ano ba yung nagiging distractions nila sa bahay, sa school? What do they want to achieve in terms of the other goals that they want for themselves in terms of health, sabihin natin, in terms of learning new things, in terms of ACADS, yan yung style ng personal coach. And don't get me wrong, one coach can have all of these things. Kaya niyang gawin lahat to. But they're ideally delegated yan. Pwedeng position coach to, position coach rin to, maybe for 2 roles, 3 roles. Ito focusing on mental naman. Tapos yung head coach, personal coach siya, more of that. Assistant coach, more of sa mental side of things, you know. Tapos may isang coach, focus talaga on drafting. There's a lot of configurations or na possible when it comes to support, the core support stuff, no. In terms of managers naman, ideally, the manager talaga siya yung nagfo-focus sa admin and logistic stuff like registration for tournaments, handling the documents of players, checking them in kapag papaliparan sila sa ibang lugar abroad, for example. Again, professional scene tayo. So, one manager per team, ideally. No. But in the collegiate context, sometimes, I just want to make note, sometimes, since may limitations tayo sa interest, sometimes a player can be the acting manager. So, manager-player. Sometimes, yung coach, siya yung mag-act as manager too kasi it's hard to find students who are interested in either in a managerial role, for example. So, nagdo-double function to. It function for 2 roles, this person. But again, that's an ideal. We're still talking about yung ideal kasi it's best that we focus on a particular strength or function talaga in the whole team ecosystem because it's just better that way in terms of specialization. And ideally, if all of these people work together, de sobrang ganda. I'm gonna go a bit faster in the interest of time. So, meron rin tayong premium support staff or auxiliary staff. Ito naman yung hindi ganoon ka-afford in terms of budget, in terms of credentials, in terms of experience, in terms of these things when it comes sa collegiate scene. But in first world countries where esports is very well developed, these things exist for teams. So this is one pivot in career track that students can get into specializing in esports, no. If nagso-sport psych ka, for example, kung nagfo-food tech ka, for example, kung nagsa-psych ka, for example, in the Philippines nga, uh, I I'm sure madaming mga professional esports org in the Philippines dun sa boot camp ng players may house help also, you know. And this forms part of the support and auxiliary staff, because you want your players to be really focused on self improvement and training and performance. And this is and we can approach this in a very professional way, so taking out all of the other considerations in terms of household responsibilities would probably help, right? And esports teams also, pag medyo malaki na yung following ng org or ng team, for example, through their manager, um, coordinate rin sila with social media officers nila, HR officers nila when it comes to pubs, yung mga quotes na pinopost, yung post-game. Good example is how Blacklist International operates. Sobrang dami nilang posts on social media. Please check them out. That's a really good example of how a social media officer can interact with yung mga sinasabi, or yung experiences ng players, or an HR officer behind the scenes speaks with their players as well. This can be anything about payroll, anything about like interpersonal concerns. And syempre, iba rin to sa psychologist and counselor, no? Iba rin, may mga nuances of differences rin there. So, yun. Lastly, in the whole ecosystem, syempre, kung halimbawa, walang team B, for team A to practice with, and this is for most teams really, especially in collegiate, may mga scrim partners, and these are the teams outside of your org. These are the people you train with, these are the people you will face in the tournaments mismo, no? And in dealing with them, it really depends on your intention, kung gaano ka frequently nyo ba gusto silang makalaro or makalaban or makatrain. Ano yung purpose, no? Do you want to reach a certain standard? Do you want to explore certain things? Like, ano yung most effective tactics available for your team? Yung strengths nyo, paano i-maximize yun? Maybe you'd like to face against Team A or Team B or Team C. Which team would help bring that out best? Right? Minsan, may standard and special training rin. What sort of training do you need for that goal? Gusto nyo bang medyo publicized yung scrims nyo? You tweet or post stories about it? Ethically, it's generally advised to not post on social media the results of scrims out of respect for your scrim partner if you don't talk about it. No. Pero do you want to scout them before the tournament? Do you want to be intentionally scouted before the tournament para pagdating ng tournament, iba pala yung lalabas natin na strat? May ganung consideration. So that's the core and ideal esports team ecosystem in my experience as an esports coach, no? But in collegiate, lots of limitations. Yeah. Kaya may mga grade out hindi available. Ito yung mga premium, can't really afford lots of coaches, but there are lots of clubs out like in the Philippines that you can train with. There's a Discord server in AcadArena that you can post for scrims. There's a Facebook chat group as well. And if your student population is blessed to have a lot of students interested in a game, no, baka pwede mag-form ng team B. But compared to before, at least, mas madami na interest in being a coach and being a manager. No? But really, limitations, we can lead naman here sa side, different goals per person. Sa professional context kasi, it's a bit easier to align your goals kasi you're getting paid. This is your livelihood. But in collegiate, people get into competing for different reasons or get into coaching for different reasons. There's also the esports stigma. For example, not everyone is not all parents, for example, are supportive, and that has a lot of, madami rin namang factors yan, not really gonna get into that, pero there are barriers to entry for students in participating in esports competition, and that's a whole different topic, no? There's schedule conflicts as well. This is very real in terms of ACAD, syempre, diba, #.justplay. Schedule conflicts are real. Sometimes, kailangan umalis bigla from a role. May exam. Hindi mamumove yung exam. Hindi kaya matake in advance or matake a bit later on. Also, maturity and experience and credentials. Sometimes, it's easier to listen to a coach or a manager kung meron na silang experience, kung mature na sila, kung may credentials sila. But again, it's hard to get that because you're still in junior high school, in senior high school, in collegiate. But really, with the healthy culture, you can support that sort of structure, and I'll get into that in a bit. No? And yun, student population and demographics, which is something I kind of touched on already. No? So, usually, ideally, in a collegiate context, dito lang tayo. May coach, may assistant coach. Pwede si coach dito sa team A, the other coach sa team B. Maybe they both handle the teams. That's possible. It's possible for two managers to handle both teams also. Pwedeng delegated yan, pwedeng hati. Etong team A and team B, pwede nga silang mag-trade players in between, subject to tournament rules of course kasi may mga lock-in periods rin yan. And then they train with other teams from different orgs, from different clubs, from different schools, right? Tapos ito si social media marketing person ng club, for example. Well, not all orgs have like someone na tutok talaga for HR purposes. And usually yung HR staff in collegiate handle naman na ni manager. Yan. So that's the ideal structure, no. I'll move on now to like breaking through the limitations um of collegiate, no. In the things that hinder them from developing a healthy culture in their esports team ecosystem. No? So first is shared expectations. I always start with this, always, because before you can perform and work together, you have to know what your goals are. So talk about it. Ano yung hinahabol nyo? Sabihin natin may team, may coach, may manager. What are your goals? And it's very important for a person to know what their goal is for joining this team, for example, taking part in this experience, and also knowing the goals of yung mga kasapi nila, yung mga kasama nila. That way they can share their expectations and they can find clarity and they can align. Okay, so what's common? Ano yung common sa atin? And that commonality helps them move forward in one direction imbes na kalat-kalat yung direction. Because this kind of this does not promote this increases the risk of miscom. This increases the risk of not communicating even. So it's always better na may alignment sa start pa lang. And alignment can exist in the form of yun, shared goals, yung training schedule, yung protocols, kapag late, kung pagka-cancel, for example, kung kailangan mag-back out of a role, individual responsibilities. Also, sino in charge of setting scrims? Sino in charge of reminding the team na may scrim tayo at 7 p.m.? Sino yung in charge of registration? Kung wala si person na to, sino yung in charge din? Right? Shared responsibilities too. Meron ba kayong dashboard sa Google Sheets that you refer to para align kayo? Or sa Notion or whatever, like kung Facebook group lang or group chat, pwede rin naman yon. But the point is, dapat may alignment. So that's the first thing that that the collegiate ecosystem can learn from a professional ecosystem, no? So shared expectations. Next is openness over egocentrism. So this is kind of a loaded word, no? Pero this is basically pride. Yeah. Yung pride mo as a person. So it's always best to be open. Confidence is different from pride, no? Confidence is something earned, something na parang may certain belief ka in your own standard and consistency. That's where confidence stems from. Pero yung ego or yung pride, it stems from non-acceptance. Yung it's only my opinion that matters kasi ako yung magaling. That sort of idea. So agreeing on what's objective or most probable in the circumstances. Kapag nagre-review na kayo ng game, whose opinion matters? The thing is, everyone's opinion matters, but what matters is you arrive at what's most objective or most probable. Ano yung totoo? Ano yung pinaka-probable given sa nangyari? Para next time, that's what you're aligned on. 'Di ba? It's very important to practice this as early as now, habang bata pa tayo, kasi when we find ourselves in the context of, working na tayo, um, lots of times you'll have to listen to the opinions of others, and you'll have to be able to self-regulate talaga and control yourself. Control what you say. Mind what you say. Know how other people will react to what you say. Diba? So, kailangan safe space. Ang team, yung pakiramdam ng isang team, regardless of the shared goals or what. It's always good to reward being open in terms of opinions, as long as there's respect, of course. Kasi that's where we learn the soft skill also of interpersonal communication. Next is banter. Yung banter respect, syempre, good time, ano tayo, gatungan tayo in terms of, the game inside the game, laugh trip, G-lang, tawanan, stuff like that. But it's just very important na may respeto parate. You don't wanna cross that line, because when you cross that line, tension builds up. And you don't want tension to build up, because this stops your momentum as a team from improving, from performing, and all sorts of things. So breezing through. Communication is better than assumptions. So, briefly, this is very intuitive, but something very underappreciated and taken for granted. If you don't know, ask. If you're unsure, ask. If something has changed, inform the people. Because not everyone might know. Something may change, inform them in advance. Something feels off, talk, converse, discuss. Pwedeng casual lang, pwedeng medyo casual or formal or serious. Pwedeng medyo seryoso. It really depends on the situation, no? So, ang pinaka-common example nito, kapag hindi makakapag-attend ng scrim si player, lots of times di yan magsasabi in advance. Pero lots of times kaya niya magsabi in advance, kasi alam niya naman na meron siyang exam on this day. For example, that's an example rin of alignment in expectations, yung protocols pagdating dyan. So instead of assuming, which gives the risk of miscom, non-com, just communicate. And this is also transferable to the workplace when we actually get there. Diba? So initiative and accountability as well. Very self-explanatory. Own your role, own your performance. Do plus one of what's expected of you and what you expect from yourself. Watch your own games. I come from an experience na we were very self-sufficient as a team. Kaming lima. We had a coach, yes. But we were very much in charge of our own self-improvement. After ako personally, since hindi ako sobrang galawan na player, meaning yung mechanics ko hindi ganun ka okay, like sakto lang. But I reached like top like 15 challenger in League of Legends. That's like top 0.01% before in my time. That was because after each game I played, I reviewed each game I played, and I didn't wait for anyone to tell me to do that. That's just an example of initiative. Feedback loops as well. It's very important for you to listen to what your teammates think about your performance. But of course, respect pa rin yan. Diba? Depende naman to sa team, how often gusto nyo mangyari. You can even approach people personally out in your own time, no? And it's also important to develop yourself. Do you get enough sleep? Nako, yan, sobrang big question yan, and very relevant. Kasi kahit ako, I sometimes kulang ako sa tulog parate, dati. But sleep is very related to your performance and how fast you learn. Diba? Do we support our own persons well enough so that when we are playing our roles as players in a team, for example, nalalabas natin yung best natin? Do we drink water? Do we exercise? Do we sleep? Things like that. These all form part of a healthy culture. And lastly, yung personal relationships. Do we care about each other in the team well enough, such that inside the game, things bubble up more easily? Instead of saying, um, uh, galing mid yung gank, sasabihin mo, kasi may pake ka sa kakampi mo in another lane. Nag-exit yung jungler topside, half yung HP niya. Think about that quality of information compared to nag-gank siya sa mid. And that might stem from your personal relationship. May pake ka dun sa kakampi mo in person. Posible yun. Because that happened to us. And that happens to a lot of professional players as well. So, yun. Really, there's a lot of other things, no, but this is what I think is really most important. And to end, a creative and purposive mind can bring success to any context. This is what I want to share really. If you allow yourself to be creative, think outside of the box, think about how you think, may intention parate yung ginagawa mo, ginagawa nyo, then success is much more likely. You'll find it much more easily in whatever context, not just esports. It's very transferable, really. So, yun, just short plug. I do mind meta coaching, life coaching. And if you wanna check what I can do out, andyan naman yung links. My socials are on the right as well. I really love to work with the youth, not just gamers, but students, and also for those who have just graduated. Madaming pinanggagalingan yung style ko. Mindfulness, metacognition, my experience as an esports coach, and a lot of the best practices in psychology as well. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Sir Mikey, for that very insightful and very intentional sharing about creating that healthy culture of team sports, or yeah, team culture while playing or while being in a sport. So, a lot of our students and also me have learned so much in cultivating relationships. Now, most especially relationships with members in a team, because we are an ecosystem, right? So we are now in our open forum session. Are you ready, Sir Mikey? Yes, sorry, you're muted.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm ready to answer any question.
Right. Our audience have sent us questions, and we actually have 5 questions, and probably some more coming. So we encourage our audience to participate in the discussion by sending us your questions. All right. Let's start with the first question right here. How to deal with team members na pasaway? Meron talaga, no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, my answer to this is very unique to
Mm-hmm.
my style of coaching. It's very important to understand kung ba't sila pasaway in the first place. Like, where are they coming from? And
Mm-hmm.
this is something that we eventually get better at as we grow older, no? Interpersonal relationships. But when we're young, it's very easy to chalk it up to just pasaway. But there's always something behind that,
Mm-hmm.
and it really boils down to talking to them, 'di ba? It's very possible na pasaway sila kasi there's some sort of disconnect, may sort of conflict, and it's just easier for a teammate, for example, to express that in terms of being pasaway, and the
Mm-hmm.
underlying issue isn't really talked about, you know. So I my general answer to this is talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's hard
Mm-hmm.
kasi Filipinos tayo. We're
Right.
not very confrontational as a
Mm-hmm.
Filipino people, but this is a skill that we can really work on,
Yeah.
or I would say cultivate also,
Mm-hmm.
even while we're young. And if we can do this while we're young, then imagine how great we can be when we've graduated na, for
Mm-hmm.
example, in the workplace, knowing how to talk to people in a
Yeah.
respectful way, kahit sensitive yung topic, sobrang
True.
important nun.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right. Madami kasing na akala nila pasaway lang, but the bottom line is hindi lang nila naiintindihan. So there is a misunderstanding, and the easy way to deal with that kind of emotion or frustration is to label that as pasaway. But
Mhm.
actually, nanggagaling siya sa mga misunderstandings.
Yes, well put.
Magaling. Yes, thank you for that answer, Sir Mikey. And let's move on sa second question natin. Why is it important to have a mental coach in esports?
Okay. So, esports is a
Mhm.
very cognitive like uh thing, no?
Yeah.
Kasi
Mm-hmm.
compared to traditional sports na very motor heavy,
Mm-hmm.
esports, for example, in PC, may mouse, tapos may keyboard, kamay, and then a lot of visual, a lot of auditory, no?
Mm-hmm.
And that's very cognitive, very mental. Video games are designed such that yung visual and auditory stimuli, it's very overwhelming. Kaya nga it's very easy to get addicted to video games, 'di ba?
Mm-hmm.
But it's also very easy to be addicted to other stuff naman. Just
Mm-hmm.
to put that out there. Uh, and so because sobrang bigat nung sensory stimuli that we're exposed to, we have to know how to manage that. Kasi pag malaki yung stimuli or mabigat, that draws more emotion, that draws out
Mm-hmm.
more thoughts, and sa context nung game, in the context of competition, these things affect us so much. One good example is tilt. Everyone gets tilted eventually when they play a game. Pag natatalo, may nag-feed na kakampi. How do you handle that, no? And that's
Mm-hmm.
where a mental coach comes into play.
True.
um Helping guide players know how to handle these
Mm-hmm.
overwhelming emotions, these intrusive thoughts, how do they better cultivate their focus, no? So
Mm-hmm.
that's one really big importance of a mental coach.
Mm, that's true. Yung treatment, I'm just curious, Sir Mikey, yung treatment ba natin with esports is almost the same as treatment dun sa mga physical sports natin?
I guess I can answer in different ways, no, depending
Mhm.
on what you mean by treatment, no. But
Mhm.
esports, I mean, naging part of SEA Games naman na 'yan, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot
Mhm.
of traction na it's something
Mhm.
official. It's something recognized
Mhm.
internationally.
Correct.
It's something that the human race consumes as entertainment, as content.
Mhm.
'Di ba? Just as we
Mhm.
consume basketball, UAAP, NBA, meron ring MPL,
Mhm.
MLB Pro League, right? Meron ring LCS sa States, may
Yeah.
league sa Korea.
Mhm.
So esports is getting there. In a sense, it's already there, but of
Mhm.
course, it's still very new, and
Mhm.
it's always evolving. Kasi esports predicated on games siya,
Mhm.
and games they come and go. Yung lifespan nila compared to
Mhm.
say basketball na yung rules super established na yan. Pero per
Yeah.
esport, depende naman yan. Depende rin sa anong klaseng genre. MOBA ba yan? First person
Mhm.
shooter ba yan?
Mhm.
May mga patches yan. Sometimes people uh, move from one game to another. So there's
Mhm.
a lot of different factors that we need to consider too, in terms of yung longevity ng isang
Yeah.
esport compared to sports.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and like all sports, it's a competitive game. It's a competitive sport. So merong natatalo, merong nananalo, and you actually said that in your answer. Parang segue na din siya to to our next question right here. So what do you do if you are the reason why natalo yung team mo?
Okay, I love this question.
Mhm.
It's ano eh, it's the assumption here is that you believe that you're the reason na natalo yung
Mhm.
team mo.
Mhm.
But the thing is, it's a team game. It's
Yeah.
5v5. Um, there might be a very obvious reason as to why
Mhm.
you would think na ikaw yung dahilan. Halimbawa,
Yeah.
late game na, nag-clash kayo 5v5, tapos ikaw yung unang namatay kasi carry ka, for example. Um, that's a very valid event for you to think that. So in that case, no, then what's important is for you to express accountability after the game as well. So,
Mhm.
mahalaga yon, number one. Number two, what are you gonna do about it? 'Di ba? Siyempre, there's a lot of emotions that come into play, lots of thoughts, pero it's about how you manage all of these things and how you
Mhm.
communicate with your teammates after. What are you
Mhm.
going to do now? What does this mean? No, in that sort of scenario, no. But the other scenario naman is um when I was talking kanina, 'di ba, there's that sort of demographic na ikaw yung you really care about self-improvement and winning. You're that sort of person.
Mhm.
Kung ganun ka and you feel like you're the reason why you lost even though hindi naman sobrang obvious kung bakit,
Mhm.
then it's very important for feedback to happen rin dun sa context ng team.
Mhm.
Talk about what happened, talk about the game, express accountability, each one
Mhm.
of you. Kasi for sure may mali diyan.
Yes,
Everyone made one mistake in the game that they
correct.
can improve on. So that kind of eases the burden then
That's
for
right.
yourself.
Yes, Sir Mikey. Ang ganda ng answer mo. Kasi kahit negative feeling siya, negative emotion, pwede pa rin niyang i-express, pwedeng, sige, tara, let's talk about it. Kasi hindi dahil negative emotion siya, let's just, keep it aside or hide it kasi nahihiya
Yes.
ka or something.
Mm.
Right. So, ang galing. Thank you po. And we go to our question number 4. We have here one audience that asked, probably this is coming from a parent. So, parents are hesitant to engage kids in esports. Nasabi mo nga kanina yung esports stigma because of the
Yes.
hazards in academics. So, what is your thoughts on this?
Okay. So I always like to throw this sort of like analogy, no? Too
Mhm.
much of anything is bad.
Mhm.
Right? So sabihin natin esports because online gaming, video games, right? Too much of
Mhm.
that can cause addiction. Likewise, if a kid is for example super diehard basketball fan, wala na siyang ginawa every day
Yeah.
kundi mag-basketball, wouldn't that be the same thing as being a hazard in terms of academics? Kasi
Mhm.
yung time invested in something else is just too much, quote unquote, too
Yeah.
much of anything is bad. So
Mhm.
so in answering this question, I'd like to point out na it's na I'd like to shift the mindset a bit
Mhm.
of or at least nudge parents to change their mindset na kahit ano namang exposure sa kids, 'pag masyadong mabigat yung interest nila sa isang bagay, hindi yun okay. Because nai-impair na yung
Yeah.
development nila in other things like academics, for example. That's my short and fast answer.
Mhm.
But I would also encourage parents to try and understand what about esports is interesting for their child.
Mhm.
Malay we might not know also the good things that the child is getting out of esports, like the things that I talked about. For example, yung culture, yung soft skills, interpersonal skills, critical
Mhm.
thinking, what my colleague my good friend Ken shared rin in the previous talk, no. There's
Mhm.
so much good in esports, just
Yes.
as there's so much good in other hobbies like
Mhm.
basketball, like arts, like music. There's a lot of good things there, but
Mhm.
really it's about tempering how much time you invest in A,
Mhm.
B, or C, so that the other aspects of your life don't suffer.
Yes, balance is the key, right? So
Yes.
I also would like to ask a follow-up question on that, Sir Mikey. What is
Sure.
the advisable length of time to play games in a day?
Okay.
Meron
So,
bang limit yon?
I would say setting a limit is always good. And
Mm-hmm.
ideally, the limit should come from yourself. Pero if that's
Yeah.
difficult, then syempre, ideally, you'll have the maturity to, ask help
Mm-hmm.
from someone to help set that limit for you. Um, I would say it's case to case. It really depends on, in a professional context, since
Mm-hmm.
livelihood talaga nila yan, then the
Yeah.
limit is mas malawak yan kasi yun yung job
Mm-hmm.
nila. But in collegiate, then if you're a player for a team, for example, the limit depends on number one, yung availability mo in terms of
Mm-hmm.
academics. Number two, what did you agree upon with your team in terms of practice schedule?
Mm-hmm.
'Pag nagampanan mo yung two things na yun, is there even time left for you to get enough
Yes.
sleep, to study well, to have free
Mm-hmm.
time for yourself? If you're
Yes.
playing a game naman without any serious goal in particular
Mm-hmm.
in terms of personal development, like leisure, like the second type of person, yung casual player lang plays with friends, then
Mm-hmm.
um I think limits are just always in relation to like what you said, Visred, yung balance eh. Yung
Mm-hmm.
other aspects in life that you care about.
Mm-hmm.
It's important na we can notice when something is too much. So the limit depends on that really. Kasi it's case
Mm-hmm.
to case per person. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the noticing part is what's important talaga.
Yes. And it's really good with this talk because you really emphasize taking care the person in you. Kasi ikaw yung mag-perform dun sa game. So it's really important that you had enough sleep, you ate, and you also took care of your other responsibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, by the way, Sir Mikey, let's give a shout out to our students who are watching this live broadcast right now. Some of our visual graphic design students, they're actually watching as a class. So,
Oh,
hello sa mga
hello, hello.
graphic design trainees natin dyan. And we also have here one viewer, J2A Gaming, joining us through YouTube at ano to, DMLMHS. So, hello sa mga taga Domingo Lacson Memorial High School. Right? And we move on to our last question for this segment. Thank you for the tips on breaking through limitations, but how can we get rid of stigma about esports?
Oh, great question. So, through webinars like these, this is
Yeah.
one way, definitely. Kasi
Mhm.
the real one very real factor is
Mhm.
uh there is generation gap. I'd like to address that. Esports, this all started in my generation, even like a generation, a bit one generation older than mine, no? And
Mhm.
there is a generation gap. Ano ba tong video gaming, online gaming? Ba't kayo nagsisigawan? You know, and all of this in comp shops, all of the things that they shout out
Yes, yes.
stuff, madaming ganun. So,
Mhm.
it's yun yung nakikita, yun yung naririnig. But
Mhm.
again, there's always another side. And the way that we can break the stigma is through showing that other side. And that's something that I really advocate for. That's something that AcadArena strongly advocates for.
Mhm.
Hashtag not just play, right? And hopefully through a sustainable effort in this way, right, we can show na there are really good things that you can gain in exposing yourself in
Mhm.
opportunities that relate to esports.
Mhm. That's so true. And because of this, madami na ding mga teachers, parents who now talking to their kids, to their students about e-games. So now open up na more or less yung stigma nalilesen na din because some of these parents and even teachers are noticing improvements in their students because
Mm.
they are now open to talking about e-games. So because of the advocacy of AcadArena and of course of NOLITC, we are opening up a lot of possibilities for our students to grow and to be understood. Yeah. So that would be the last question for our open forum session, Sir Mikey. Any parting words that you would like to share to our audience?
Mm, um Just, I think yung last quote ko lang talaga, as much as possible, when you get into something, know why you're getting into that. And when you're already in that something, activity yan, hobby yan, task yan, class yan, something that you're learning, know when it's the right amount and know when it's too much. Always like have a goal in mind. You don't have to be robotic about it, but um in living life kasi it's very easy to fall into this thing called automaticity. Like we just go about life without really thinking much to it. Parang in the gamer language, it's autopilot. We go about life in autopilot. So it's really great if we can from a young age like cultivate yung intentionality and being purposive in our actions, because this really translates so strongly when we're much older. And again, if you wanna learn more, again, I do coach. So I'd love to work with youth. So check out the links na lang that I
Yeah.
shared kanina, and follow my Facebook page as well for updates.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sir Mikey, for your very insightful discussion about creating a healthy team culture. We would like to express our most profound appreciation to our expert speaker, Sir Mikey for Sir Alberto. Thank you. And if you like this webinar, please share some virtual reactions. Let's give Sir Mikey a virtual hug, virtual heart, and virtual clap reaction right there. Moreover, we also would like to thank our active participants for tuning in up to the end of this session. So we would like to share or show this certificate of appreciation to our expert speaker, Sir Mikey, the province of Negros Occidental and Negros Occidental Language and Information Technology Center presents this certificate of appreciation to our expert speaker, Mikey Frazar Alberto, for sharing his expertise and commendable service extended as a resource speaker in the webinar, Creating a Healthy Team Culture, given this 24th day of March 2023 via YouTube and Facebook live stream, signed by our Vocational School Administrator, Dr. Maria Cristina Orbicido. Again, let us give a big round of applause to Sir Mikey.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. It's my privilege.
Yes, our pleasure. I also would like to emphasize how you can participate or how can you give us your feedback. Kindly send us your evaluation through the link provided in the comment section, or you may scan a QR code that is flashed on your screen. Do this right now or after the webinar. Your email address should be typed in correctly, and be careful with the spelling of your email address. The evaluation site will be open and only until 6 o'clock this afternoon. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for participating. We would like to make an announcement or reminder that next week on March 29th, we will have another exciting talk about safe spaces on digital world. Don't forget to join us in the same platform that you are currently using. So there you have it. This concludes our NOLITC Sport webinar on creating a healthy team culture. See you in the same platform that you're currently using, and stay safe and keep smiling and take care. By the way, good luck to our participants and players who will start the game tomorrow. This is your host again, Red, reminding you, knowledge inspire and knowledge cares, avance negrense.